Such a sight as Kurt saw, unless it is to overwhelm entirely, would have to be brought into consciousness as communal experience in full view of an audience. There, secure within the tragic form, and not as solitary reader, one might look directly upon the face of the Gorgon and live to tell the tale. Otherwise, a Marlowe must interpret it for us, or as an Absalom, a Quentin Compson, who goes with Miss Rosa Coldfield into the deserted Supton mansion, the house of death, to find Henry Supton, his brother's murderer, locked away in darkness. Horrifying as this moment is, however, it is still questionable as tragedy. Highlight. Quentin reports the experience to us, and our minds and sympathies give assent to it. We recognize it and thrill in its vicarious horror, but what we experience is removed from the full-blown tragic experience. For in the confines of the novel, we are shielded by mediation from the unfathomable contradictions of the act. It happened somewhere else to someone whose interiority we do not know. We know of it intellectually and can contemplate it in complete safety. Stop. Another person is telling us about it, which is another kind of experience entirely, possessing its free zone. Circle that, no doubt. But not the full-bodied pity and terror that come of being there, or even when we read the Greeks and Shakespeare, of feeling like we're there. Highlight. Unalleviated, circle unalleviated, tragedy provides no protection for us, no way out by means of psychological detachment. In its authentic appearances, the tragic experience is irreducible, inexplicable, offered directly to the audience. Stop. All right, so frisson means a sudden, strong feeling of excitement or fear. And I do have it back there. You don't have to write it down because I do have it back there. It's number 22. So I have the vocab posted to the classroom. So I took a picture of that, so you can just chill out on that for a little bit. But it's important to note the difference between a novel and an actual full-blown like tragic play or a situation. What's the difference? Anybody know? Sort of. Because, like, Gianna, your uncle could die, and that's sad for you. But if your uncle is George Floyd, that's also sad for me. Because I experience it with you in community. It's a tragic experience that is different than just someone telling it to me. So, like, if you tell me, hey, my uncle died, he was, like, killed by a cop, and I'm like, oh my God, that's devastating, I'm very sorry. But if I see it, like we did see the George Floyd video, I experience that tragedy with you, and I see it in real time. You see what I'm saying? So that's the difference between a novel or a story or someone telling us something that happened and actually viewing it together. And the reason that like the Floyd thing was a tragedy, a different kind of tragedy than just being told about it, is because we all saw it together. And Dr. Cowan says that we have to experience tragedy in community for us to grow from it. I think that last night, this time period, it just lends itself to teaching. It's like all of these experiences. We all saw that together last night in real time. And I think that when those kinds of things happen, speaking just from a teacher's perspective, it just, well, from a teacher who's teaching tragedy, it's like that is tragedy. You're seeing things happen in real time that we as a community should learn from. And if we don't, then we miss the giant opportunity. Because it's very hard to learn from someone else's sadness. Like Gianna can say, my uncle died because of police violence, and I feel bad for her, but I don't experience it with the same kind of dread. Right? All right. During the two epochs, it is of its generally agreed upon appearance in Western history, it was within the safety of cities that the tragic epiphany occurred. The tragic pattern was harrowed up into the light of recognition, with all levels of the populace looking on in the same fascinated horror and jouissance. It's French, and it means a physical or intellectual pleasure, delight, or ecstasy. Again, that's up there as well. And the dramas produced during these two epochs are still capable, centuries later, of, among strangers, of generating the tragic event. Like the Bible, these Greek and Shakespearean texts remain potential sources of unmediated, do I have that word circled? No. Same thing as unalleviated, actually. Catharsis in ages and climes far removed from their origin. Belonging to succeeding eras as much as their own, even solitary readers can experience the same shared pity and terror arising from their pages. For in their essence, these works were conceived communally and expressed in language that carries with it primordial implications, recognizable, even longed for, in whatever medium. Highlight this. But the Greek and Shakespearean dramas do not exhaust the tragic, they educate us about it. They have shown us that tragedy is a pattern in reality, not of our own making. Hence, we can recognize in works of art its partial appearance, as well as oblique patterns signifying its presence, hieroglyphics, circle that we would otherwise miss. For though not every age can or even should try to produce full-blown tragedy, a sense of the tragic seems a necessary ingredient of the Western mind. Stop. Why do we need the tragic? Why do we need to experience tragedy in community together? To learn from it, right? To grow. Remember during comedy, I said the darker the comedy, the more moral it is, the more of a teaching piece it is. I said the closer you get in this picture to the abyss, the closer you get to the abyss, the more severe the lessons become. Because I'm just gonna maybe go out on a limb here, but one of the problems I think about Americans is we want everything to be nice, just like powder coated with flowers and petals and Bath and Body Works lotion, and we want everything to be pretty and nice and just and it's. I'm from the Midwest. We call that Midwest nice, where all of the S can be falling down around you, and you're like, that's nice, but be nice to each other. And it's like, no, sometimes things just are really bad. And sometimes we have to look at the darkness and say, this has got to get fixed, because we can't just be nice all the time. We have to fix these things. And sometimes that's going to require a bit of just not meanness, because I don't think that's the opposite of nice, but just the what is the word? What's the word for, well, I can't say it because I'm online. Someone will see me. The guts. You know what other words I was going to say. The guts to do something about it. Do we have the guts to do something about the things that are wrong with our society? And that's what tragedy presents to us. And remember 2 days ago, before all of this nonsense happened, when I said, Dr. Cowan said, an archetypal idea that takes on form at intervals throughout history. We're there. So like on a map, like in a zoo, you are here. Exit that way. Okay. Next section, tragic theory. Tragedy in itself is unarguably communal, but its relationship to the polis, we know as city, has frequently been considered problematic. Plato saw tragedy as the poetic kind most dangerous to the city, a condemnation Aristotle attempted to offset in his Poetics, with his emphasis on the ethical and ameliorative. Did I write that down? No, because I haven't got to that section yet. Circle ameliorative. What does it mean to ameliorate? We learned this from our comedy essay. To make something better. To put the Band-Aid on it. To make it feel better. Highlight this. In the Aristotelian view, the tragic action results from a castigable, circle that, blindness. The Greeks call it hamartia or hamartia. Circle that. The same word Christians were later to use for sin. A myopia, circle myopia. We're still highlighting, by the way. Affecting the, top of 6, judgment and will of an otherwise predominantly virtuous leader. Stop. Where is my pencil? I don't know where my pencil is. There's one. All right, so we're going into the classic descriptions of how tragedy works. You have this blindness, the hamartia. The tragic hero has a tragic flaw. So castigable, by the way, means scolding or berating. I'll put it up on the board and I'll take a picture of it later. Hamartia is a blindness. Basically, you can't see your own sin. Myopia means single vision. Further, a reversal of fortune. Circle reversal of fortune. And then up above it, I want you to write peripetia. P-E-R-E-P-E-T-I-A. I'll write it up here for you guys in the chat. Peripetia. It's Greek, and it means reversal of fortune. And then its consequent recognition. Above that, I want you to write anagnoresis. A-N-A-G-O-R-I-S-I-S. I'll write it up. I'll say it again. Hold on. A-N-A-G-O-R-I-S-I-S. So again, a peripetia is a reversal of fortune, and anagnoresis is the recognition of the reversal. I'm going to explain all that in a second. A-N-A-G, anagnoresis. So A-N-A-G-O-R-I-S-I-S. So reversal of fortune is peripetia, P-E-R-E-P-E-T-I-A. Recognition, the Greek word is anagnoresis, A-N-A-G-O-R-I-S-I-S. After leader. Okay, so the order of events here. Hello, Bluetooth. I hear you. I know it's connected. All right, so I guess I can't hold this up, please, so they can see. Well, I can get a video of what we're doing here. All right, so the order of events is the tragic hero has a tragic flaw. Anybody know what that's called? Hubris, hamartia, which is a tragic flaw. She's calling this castigable blindness. So it's a blindness. The Christians would later call it sin. We don't have that in the Greek because it's pre-Christian. And then you have peripetia. And then you have anagnoresis. And then you have what's called the scene of suffering, which we haven't talked about yet, but we'll get there. And then you have catharsis. So peripetia is the recognition. Did I say recognition? No, I said reversal of fortune. And anagnoresis is the recognition. And the scene of suffering is where most people die. Like, almost all die. Almost all characters die. And then the catharsis is the purging of emotion built up by the audience. The Greeks call it pity and fear. So it's the emotional purging. Okay, where do we purge in comedy? Laughter, remember? The catharsis in comedy is laughter. The catharsis in tragedy is just the purging of the pity and the fear that's built up from watching all this happen. So this is like, tragedy is a recipe. This is the recipe. And I'll take a picture of this and put it on the classroom. But this is the tragic recipe. Hubris is when a man, generally a man, thinks himself what? Like a what? Like a god. Worship me, worship me. Anybody like that? And so the tragic flaw is his sin. And so it can be the sin of adoration. It can be the sin of not being able to make a decision like Hamlet. It can be the sin of, sorry, I'm not wearing my mask. I didn't mean to do that. I just got up and came over here. It could be the sin of lust, like Romeo and Juliet. But it's always something that you feel that you can just keep getting away with. It's when humans can do things like just get away with things that you shouldn't be able to get away with, right? And the universe has a strange way of saying, no, not so much. Gone too far here. The Germans call it Schadenfreude. You ever heard that? Where it's like, it's karma, basically. And then what happens is that the tragic hero, like take Hamlet, for example, he turns around, like, not literally, but in the story, he turns around in the story and he looks back and he's like, oh, I did all that. And then, so it's these kind of come together where he turns around and recognizes that he is the cause of all this stuff. And then remember this is all a ball that's rolling down a hill and there's no break. So it all happens very fast. Like Hamlet happens in a 24-hour period. The play we're going to read happens in a 24-hour period. Romeo and Juliet's like 2 or 3 days. Like it's all very fast. The scene of suffering, almost everyone dies. And then this is where we purge our emotions. You with me online? You couldn't see that very well, or you couldn't see that at all, but you can look at the video and I'll also take Nola, go ahead. And I will also take a picture of that for you. That makes sense? You guys? Okay. So it says, brings about a counterpoint of pity and terror leading to insight and affecting a catharsis with a subsequent restoration of order. This conception of tragedy dominated the poetics of the Middle Ages, even though steeped in Horace and Cicero, medieval writers were familiar with Aristotle only through a Latin translation by the Arabic philosopher Averroes. After the late 15th century rediscovery of the Poetics in a Greek manuscript, it became almost the sole arbiter, circle that, of tragic drama, though it was blended with an already established Roman didacticism, circle that. For a couple of centuries afterward, neoclassical, circle that, theorists tended to view tragedy in the light of poetic justice, conceiving of tragic conflict as the dramatization of a threat against not only morality, but decorum, circle that, ending, however, with the ultimate vindication of the right order. Highlight this. Not until the 19th century, when Hegel advanced his philosophy of the conflict of good with good, or collision, circle collision, his term for the painful attempt of spirit to embody itself in space and time, was their theory to rival Aristotle's. Stop. Though, unlike the Greek philosopher, Hegel was chiefly concerned with the significance of tragedy rather than its art form. Highlight this. Hegel considered certain human powers as making up an ethical substance binding a person to various goods. Now she's not talking about like stuff, but like capital G good, like love and justice and things like that. The most poignant, circle that, situation in which one can find oneself, according to Hegel, is to encounter these goods in conflict with each other in one's own life. All right, this is very difficult. What I mean by that is, so the term collision is, and it's a K because it's the Greek spelling. So a collision, as it sounds, is a colliding of two things. But in this case, it's not too good. It's not too bad. It's not good and evil. It's good and good. So if you take Hamlet again, for example, you have Ophelia, who is Hamlet's girlfriend, basically, and you have Ophelia's father. So Ophelia, she's stuck in the middle. She loves, as most women in tragedy are, BTW. She's stuck in the middle between her boyfriend, whom she loves, and her father, whom she loves. So you have love versus love. It's not going to end well. She's going to have to choose, right? So that's a tragic collision where you have these two good things set up against each other. And Dr. Cowan even says here that poignant means exacting. EXATING, exacting. Like a knife. So you're stuck on a knife blade. Whichever way you move is going to hurt. Right? You move to the right, you're still cut. You move to the left, you're cut. It's going to hurt no matter what. And so there's really no good answer here. You choose your father, you lose your boyfriend. You choose your boyfriend, you lose your father. I'm sure there's people in this building that are going through that situation right now. You know, maybe they're LGBT and they don't want to come out because they're stuck in an exacting situation, something like that. Yes. We circled well, I'll put it up there. Yeah. But I'll tell you, collision, decorum, did I search? Oh yeah, arbiter, didacticism, neoclassical, decorum, collision, poignant. What time is it? Okay. You guys online understand what collision is? Ren, you got it? All right, Karen, thank you. Nietzsche continued this view of tragedy as representing forces in conflict with each other, as he expressed it, between the Apollonian and the Dionysian poles in human culture and in individual persons. So on the margin, I want you to write that Apollo is the god of art. He's the god of other things too, but in this case, the art portion is the important piece. And Dionysus, you can see the spelling right there. It's just that instead of the A-N, just write U-S at the end. D-I-O-N-Y-S-U-S. Dionysus is the god of wine and revelry. So, fun! The god of wine and revelry. But that's also where darkness comes from. So